Hello, Albsterz here. Today we're going to be jumping into part 2 of MatPat's FNAF Ultimate Timeline, The Rise of the Aftons. But before we do that, I would like to get your suggestions on any horror games you would like me to play alongside the mainline series and also the FNAF games. Let me know down in the comments and I will add them to the list and get round to them. But without further ado, let's have a little look at the rise of the Afton.
Internet. Welcome to Game Theory.
Hello
and
again,
page
MatPat.
7 of the FNAF timeline.
That is
script.
nuts.
Last time we covered the origins of Freddy. We talked about William Afton's childhood dream project of making a singing bear come to life, and the infuriating moment that his dream is copied by a rival restaurant franchise looking to steal away his success. The merger of the two franchises results in William meeting Henry, a brilliant designer with a knack for robotics. Working together, they make Fredbears flourish, spawning popular Saturday morning cartoon shows, toy lines, and spin-off restaurants under the Fazbear name.
We also learned in the previous episode as well about the animatronics and the children possessing each of the animatronics, the crying boy and Cassie into Golden Freddy, etc, etc. It was really, really cool and actually kind of mind-blowing that I didn't know about that kind of lore.
Last we left him, Afton was thriving, the world of robotics opening his eyes to new and exciting ways of bringing characters to life. Bringing things to life,
really kind of
that was his
creepy.
core driving force, his passion. And it was this very passion that would mutate, twist, and morph from here on out in the story. Because with life, there is inevitably death. Something that Afton would become intimately familiar with.
Chapter 2, the Afton era.
1983. Business was booming with two whole restaurant franchises running. Fredbear's Family Diner and the newly opened Freddy Fazbear's
Well, if I remember,
Pizza. Together, William and Henry had been able to take the
is
hybrid suit idea and
FNAF
make it
2,
into a reality.
1993
They
is
called their new
FNAF 1.
invention the Springlock suit. And fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these two men. A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy, Psychic Friend Fredbear. I mean, plushie Fredbear. But
What? So he had a plushie that had cameras in to keep an eye on his children.
since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid, he also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael. There was just one problem with that. Michael was far from the best babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly left him behind. William watched all of it from his cameras. Kids would be kids. Tomorrow was another day, after all.
He doesn't. It's just like, no, I got some animatronics to build. Don't worry about them. Boys will be boys.
Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry thoughts would run through Michael's mind. Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair.
Yeah, but if he took off the mask, he wouldn't be crying.
Even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank that just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him.
Like,
His brother
why
squirmed,
would you even do
screamed,
that?
kicked, and fought, but just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped down.
The noise that must have made in that room, that must haunt Michael for the end of days. Not only losing his brother, but that noise as well.
Stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank. It was meant to be funny.
Just a
The
prank,
boy was taken to the hospital and was immediately given an IV. Flowers and pills filled the nightstand next to his hospital bed, but the damage was too severe. He couldn't recover. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words, a small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together.
So he didn't even turn up with his son in hospital? He just sent the plush? Wow, that really says a lot about William Afton.
Would not be the end. No matter what, William's son,
even though he's
would
trying to
again.
rebuild
It would just
him.
take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded into the inky unknown of the afterlife. In the aftermath of the tragedy, changes started happening around the restaurants. Kids were now required to wear security wristbands to prevent anyone from getting outside without parental permission. Any kid who approached the exit without permission would have to answer to the security puppet, a marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids in their tracks. It was William's idea, inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant
Yeah, I
without
don't
his
think
brother.
that's a good
In the wake
idea,
of Fred
to
Bear's
be honest.
spring lock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard work that he and Henry had put into them. William would eventually bury the boy's small body in a remote location out in the woods right alongside his drive into and out of work every day. The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV, but his son...
Yeah, because I was about to say, we don't, from the first video that we watched, we don't see or hear too much about William Afton's wife, so maybe this gets expanded upon here.
Michael was far worse, complaining of seeing hallucinations of a golden bear standing outside of his window. The boy was so racked with guilt that he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother stuck inside the suit that took his life. The suit's three-toed feet digging into the wet earth. The words, "It's me," ringing through Michael's ears. Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite.
Hold on. The fan game Juniors that we're playing, that doesn't take place in a haunted bar, does it? Where they possess the animatronics? That would be so cool if the actual fan game is based on this bar, but we just didn't know.
He found himself going there more and more frequently, spending longer and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect and stew on how
that's what alcohol does anyway. You just reflect.
Themed restaurant.
Think of
How
the memories.
they cut his character out of the cartoon when everyone else was there. How Henry had humiliated him by buying him out of bankruptcy, and now there was his son. Henry had taken his son from him.
You kind of took Charlotte from him as well. I know it's both very unfortunate, but you have kind of done a little bit worse.
Part was the part that failed after all. William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't.
Good on the bartender.
And angry, William raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building, bullies laughing at her through the window. Fine, some other problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea, a beautifully awful idea.
No.
Humiliated him all those years ago. Henry had killed his business, and now Henry's robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own.
So he does it out of revenge and kind of like, oh, I've lost my son, so you can now lose your daughter, kind of thing.
Feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt free. The years of resentment and bitterness trapped in his heart finally released in a moment of pure unapologetic evil.
God, that's no. I wonder if they're gonna put this into the FNAF movie. Let me know if you think they're gonna go as far to do this. It is a horror film at the end of the day, but if they make it PG-13 or 18, depends on how far they could go with maybe these scenes that we kind of are talking about here.
It would make Henry hurt like he hurts. And in that moment, William dropped Charlie's lifeless body and drove home, forced to confront his family problems later that night, appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though Henry had suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence, nothing that could link him back to the crime.
So he actually did kind of
Fred Bear's
think
family
it was
diner
him.
would close for good. 2 high-profile deaths around the restaurant with 2 grieving owners in such a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides, Freddy Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location, and there they would sit for 2 uneventful years. The rest of 1983 and 1984 were spent quietly grieving. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching Henry's level of engineering and even surpassing him. And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics, for all those pet projects that were a little bit too experimental for the regular operations of the pizzeria.
But that's what I think he was kind of hoping with that, with the death of Charlotte, that Henry would grieve and stuff like that during his time, because William Afton knew that he could bring his son back, so that's why it's kind of driving him at the exact same time in order to try and bring him back, I think. and also to get better than
First
Henry.
of these experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which allowed him to work while still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras. 1983. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important, why he was down there in the first place. This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son.
There you go. Yeah, I
I
just
will
literally
put
answered
you
my
back
own question.
together. This was for him, all for him, right? But cameras weren't enough. He needed to solve the runaway Michael problem.
I can't actually wait to play sister locations because it seems so important to like the story and finding out what William Afton was doing down in his basement
had
in
to
there.
keep him in the house. He couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten Afton to start learning more about life, robots, the human mind, and what a fallible machine we as humans were. Our reality is so easy to manipulate with a few sensory deceptions.
Yeah, but don't do it on your other son.
With just a few sounds, he had discovered that he could alter a person's vision. He could transform blank, smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials. They would appear organic, rotting, putrid, terrifying. These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it?
So you're gonna terrify your son, even though your first son was terrified of the animatronic, but now you're gonna give like Michael like PTSD essentially with all of them coming in and trying to attack him in the bedroom and stuff?
Extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son. He would make him sorry. And so Michael would grow up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the hospital room, the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares, illusions created by sound. Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security guard, he would still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of these extra projects meant that his home life suffered even more. He was an absent father
the whole
and
Afton
a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls?
That's so
All I
great.
see is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb.
That's his wife?
And despite her repeated demands that he leave his office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need to see your son.
Am I getting that correct in terms, or am I not getting that
I'm
right?
keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all, there was one lingering feeling. William wasn't done. He had gotten a taste of what it felt like to be unleashed, what it felt like to be free. Charlie's murder had unlocked something in him, and he wanted more. June 26th, 1985. Putting on the golden Bonnie suit, he lured children one by one to the back room of the pizzeria when no one was looking. At first, he was cautious. He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would ask for help with homework. Susie was the first. You never truly forget your first.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But where to hide the bodies? He couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they'd never be found and where they'd never leave the building. They had to be stuffed inside of the suits.
Oh, that is so rancid and disgusting. How could you not smell it? In the suit. I know they talk about it a little bit later on in terms of the animatronics stinking up, but surely you'd look inside it or something. That smell would be so strong.
Maintain those things anyway, except for him. And so Susie would go.
Oh, he's the only one that maintains
Fritz,
them.
Jeremy, and Gabriel would come next. But it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one, where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school. Throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him
me?
into the back of my car.
The body of
What?
Cassidy was far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one he shouldn't have killed.
Oh, and that's why Cassidy is the one that's the vengeful spirit, because it was the one that was brutally attacked. That now pieces that together, and that's why Cassidy's always coming after Afton and wants him to be brutally injured as well and has the same suffering, and that's why he constantly keeps dying all the time, because Cassidy wants him to have that same sort of feeling that they went for, the head.
With no more active animatronics left, he shoved the body into the one suit that remained backstage. The long-forgotten yellow Fredbear, now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like Cassidy was broken, like his son was broken. Newspapers reported on this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children's incident. Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back, but they couldn't convict him. They had no bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial at best, and so he walked away.
Well, yeah, they can only assume, can't they? And I think I got the date wrong with FNAF.
He saw his daughter Charlie all over again, so he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria. Henry would keep the franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again. This could not happen again. How could he protect the kids? Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement an even more extreme security system in the form of new animatronics, toy animatronics, inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago. But these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition abilities.
But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database, so they can detect a predator a mile away.
All the original animatronics, now withered with age, were moved to the new location. With a plan in place, it was time to try once more. The year was 1987, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines and
so much lore to take in. I'm like, trying to scramble the dates in together. I'm a dum-dum. I'm a big dum-dum. It's 1987.
Local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton. Freddy's was back, and without him? That was his idea. His character. Henry was, yet again, trying to cut him out of the picture. No. As long as these restaurants stayed open, William would always come back. Then he noticed the phone number to apply at the bottom of the article. $100 a week to apply call.
I know,
Afton
they halved the
would go
price.
back, not as an owner or
no, actually, it would be beforehand, so they would have upped the price.
They would least suspect him. A lowly day shift security guard. And there it was. Buried in the back of parts and services, mixed in with the old withered animatronics, was the golden rabbit. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right. From what I understand, the building's on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. Our position just became available.
Oh, so that's what they were referring to.
5 more kids. He didn't know what felt better, getting back into the suit after 2 long years of waiting, or knowing how devastating this would be to Henry the next morning. He didn't even try to hide his crime this time, just meant more blood on Henry's hands. He failed to protect the kids again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was sure that this would get it to close. Good, if he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new pizzeria opened, he would be there. But as he sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind. He had seen something strange. The old withered animatronics, they had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet. It was almost like those old robots were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did he have something to do with that? The following day, the news would report a security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift. Was that bite meant for him? William's curiosity was stronger now.
I think the bite, if I remember correctly, was an outburst to the security guard because it was a adult and it just, as it was a kid possessing the animatronic, if I remember this correctly with the lore that we're trying to suck in, that is why it attacked the security guard. And also in the comments in the previous video, people were talking about Remnant and how I've got to learn about that as well. And how that ties into Michael. It's really, really cool.
Now that his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's pizzeria. Heck, there was practically no way a Freddy's would ever open again. He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create his own pizzeria.
Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
Circus Baby's Pizza World. This would be the place where he could continue his work.
This was parts and services eventually, wasn't it?
Experimenting. He needed more kids, and he needed them alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face on the restaurant floor, he needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for his work. With that goal in mind, he designed a new breed of animatronic. Their endoskeletons fluid and flexible. He equipped them with sound lures that could mimic voices. They could isolate children. They could incapacitate and contain them with zero direct input from him. It was brilliant. brilliant. He was brilliant. Far beyond the simple bars and wires of Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard bird. Instead, it was back to his characters, his creations. Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as well as 2 special ones. The first, Ballora, was an homage to the woman who left him. Now she would never leave him again. The second, the titular baby, was designed with his baby in mind.
Oh, yep. A bit of foreshadowing of that one, huh?
Elizabeth, his youngest child. She would always be Daddy's little girl, the one that listened to him, the one that obeyed, until the day that she didn't.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her? She's so
why have you got to be British? Hey, why? Oh, hold on. Aren't the Aftons British? That's like a fun little fact that they're actually British. So that's pretty cool.
The day before Circus Baby's Pizza World opened, she disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with Baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole. Scared and confused child fading into eternal darkness. By the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of Circus Babies under the guise of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed. Baby had been built with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth.
Freak you out. Oh, that really would.
Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had to know more. His mourning turned to excitement. He had to return to where it all started.
This is why he's a nutter. His daughter's just died and he's excited. He's like, yes, yes, wunderbar. This is a breakthrough. This is revolutionary. Oh, man.
1993. Pathetic. This place was pathetic.
AR Special Delivery. That's the mobile game, isn't it, if I remember?
Original animatronics from so long ago, but William's damage to the brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades. But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls. One night, then another, then another. William repeatedly snuck into the old, broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him, one by one dismantling them, robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But we didn't know for sure. Leaping out of a room that was invisible to the animatronics programming, he dragged the oversized robotic skeletons back to his underground workshop, back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes. Eyes that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted the robotic parts down. 5 animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his own creations?
What?
He had to try. He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal and injected the goo into Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry endoskeleton. And suddenly the coils came to life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on its own. He'd done it! He had unlocked the secret to life itself.
So pretty much he could dismember and just make whatever animatronics he wanted to, and then just keep injecting them with this remnant?
Something was clearly wrong. The movements were erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else, something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts. He would need to keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more of this remnant. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for any remaining...
Well, obviously, if you can buy multiple souls of people, it's gonna be proper weird.
Scraps of metal, the ghosts attacked. His past victims come to collect their due, all led by Cassidy. The 5 lined up and blocked the door, and Afton's mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts, real ghosts that he could see, all standing against him. But what could they do? What couldn't they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How do you stop something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in their death in the first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would...
We talked about this in the comments of the previous video. Everything you need to know about FNAF and how he was going into the suit and stuff like that, and the meaning behind it. It was really, really cool to talk to everyone about it. That's why in this video as well, if you want to put it down in the comments, any of your theories and stuff, I will try and reply to as many comments as possible. I love it.
Power over them just like the day that they died. He was the genius. He was the one in the suit. He was the one in charge.
So it's a power.
The spring lock snapped into place. Maybe it was his frantic movements. Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant.
Maybe it was the sweat from the anxiety.
He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All he could do was collapse, blood slowly oozing out of the suit and pooling onto the floor around him. It couldn't end like this. It wouldn't end like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option was to survive, to live, to keep living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him, a security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage, and who else would it be other than Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry would see him. They were partners after all. He would be the one to help save him, to get him out of this suit, to relieve him from this tremendous pain.
Would he though? Would Henry actually help him though?
Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red, and Henry, saying nothing, turned and walked away.
There ain't no way that Henry's gonna be helping him. He's gonna be like, nah, karma's got you. Because if Henry still thinks it was Afton that killed his daughter, of course he's gonna walk away.
To inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations.
And that's why he sealed it up.
So if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault. Management also requests that this room not be mentioned to family, friends, or insurance representatives.
And so there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years, trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die.
30 years! 30 years! Oh no. Wow. Because Henry even knew that he was already possessed by the actual suit itself, and that's why he was still alive, or he left him to die.
End of this part. I say this part because it's not officially the end of the Afton era just yet, but this just felt like a really solid stopping point. The episode has gone on forever. Okay, so most of this is things that we already knew, stuff that's been established and reestablished time and time again by
I didn't know about.
That said, there are two things that I absolutely have to address. The first and biggest is the placement of sister location, or more specifically, Elizabeth's death. To me, evidence in game seems to suggest that it was meant to come before the crying child's death in 1983. The biggest clue to this is that the crying child saw something. Remember what you saw is the phrase that's repeated over and over again by psychic friend Fredbear, aka William Afton speaking through a walkie-talkie in the Fredbear plushie's stomach. But what did he see? Well, I think we can tell based on how the nightmare animatronics are visualized. They have mouths in their stomachs, just like Baby ripping in half at the waist to swallow a kid.
So he would have seen his sister's death, so that's why he was traumatized by the animatronics. It would make sense, and that's why he didn't want to go near him.
Also, the empty girl's room, one presumably left behind by a dead sister. And
that would actually make
explains
a lot of
he's
sense.
Scared, and more specifically, why Afton wants him scared. He needs his kids to stay away from the animatronics. He doesn't want them getting too close, because the last time one of his kids got too close to a robot, his daughter died. That's then why he sets up the nightmares, to scare both Mike and the crying child away from the animatronics from that point forward. That's why books like the Character Encyclopedia outright suggest that we play as the crying child in FNAF 4. That's why he has a nanny cam following the crying child everywhere, so he can keep...
I can't wait to play. For people that don't know, I'm playing through the franchise for the very first time. We're currently up to FNAF 3, but I still want to take in all the lore as it's very obscure during the games.
On his kids when they're out of his sight. He can't let another Elizabeth situation happen. The death of Elizabeth also gives William Afton extra motivation for killing. He's a grieving father. His daughter was taken away from him, so Charlie should die as well. He's lashing out at the world after losing his kids.
Like that.
And again, we know that at least one of his children had to have died prior to Charlie's death, based on the mound of dirt that we see in Midnight Motorist. It also allows Circus babies to open and close earlier in the timeline, which is how you wind up with Funtime Foxy appearing as Mangle in the FNAF 2 location. Basically, Elizabeth dying first has everything it needs to fit, except for the most important thing, the murder weapon. Why would Afton be building an animatronic with a giant claw in its stomach so early in the timeline? At this point, he just has
Maybe
no
he was
motive.
experimenting?
It just doesn't make sense prior to 1983. At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone, and we know for a fact that the missing children's incident is 1985. So Elizabeth's death coming before any of those events just doesn't work, hence why I placed it where I did in the narrative timeline. Afton's death here is also a bit tricky. We know that he returned to the FNAF 1 location to break down the original animatronics in order to harvest their remnant. We know that he melts down 5 things to become one thing. Candy Cadet makes that very clear. So the 5 things are the 5 endoskeletons from the various animatronics. That would be totally fine if it weren't for one huge problem. On his 5th visit to the pizzeria, Afton gets spring locked. So either the 5 becoming 1 starts in 1993, but then finishes 30 years later when he re-emerges from the wall to add the last endoskeleton to his pile, or he's had himself some reason to return to the original location after harvesting all the stuff that he...
But 1993 plus 30 years, if I can do maths quickly, is 2023. That's kind of nuts. And when does security breach or like the current day FNAF take place?
Not ideal, but it's the one angle that makes the most sense. And with that, this next chapter comes to a close, thereby leaving us with 5 more games to cover and another 40 plus years of Fazbear history to recap.
That is
when you put it that
nuts.
way, something tells me that this might balloon into 4 parts.
Yes, and there is currently 4 parts as the time of recording, so we got 2 parts left to react to this series.
We'll see. Anyway, until then, my Faz heads, congratulations! You've made it through a massive upload. And hey, if you are still looking for more to watch, then check out the other 5 brand new awesome...
Check out MatPat's Stylist channel as well if you want more content from MatPat as well. But this is where I'm going to leave this video here. Thank you so much for joining me on the FNAF Theory videos from MatPat and other people on YouTube as well. I really do appreciate it. And all the love and support on the videos as well. Thank you so much. As always, boom, 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 boom. So guys, thanks all around and I will see you in the next video.
2, 3,
bye.
and 4. Count what you have now. Don't count what you don't have.